Thank you. So good evening to our St. John's parents and our St. Charles parents and to our school principal, Mr. Simon Moore. It is an honor to have all of you here this evening. So before we commence, I'm just going to open in prayer. So if I could ask you just to bow your heads. Father God, we give thanks that you reign sovereign, and thank you, Lord, that the school was built on your biblical truth. So, Lord, we come together this evening to honor you as we learn more about how it is that you want us to parent, and also because you know just how much you love the family unit. So, Lord, may we honor you in all that we speak about this evening, and may this just give us wisdom as parents. And so we lift this prayer in your precious Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen. So I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker this evening and just doing a bio on her. I know that most of you will be familiar with the way that she teaches and the way that she lives her life, but it is always just nice to hear on paper. And you'll see that as you hear in paper, what she has achieved in her life, but also her experience, you'll see that you put them together and it brings about incredible wisdom. So we are really honored this evening to have Rev Di speaking to us and addressing us. So just some of the things that Di has achieved and been in her lifetime is that she has spent 5 years with YWAM, which is Youth with a Mission, and working in a Muslim country in an NGO. She has also been involved in Rosebank Union Church in Santon on Mission Mobilizer and training cross-cultural ministry and facilitating international prayer journeys. Also, she has worked at Riverview Manor Rehab and Addiction Experience, which is not her addiction experience, located in Underberg, and offering spiritual care to clients and teaching the Celebrate Recovery course. Many churches and schools have invited Rev Di to come and speak to their schools, particularly in the area of addictions, anxiety and depression. And Rev Di is married to Dr. Andrew Pickford, who is also a specialist in psychiatry, and between them they do quite a few combined talks. She is also, amidst all of that, a mother of 4 children, now in their 20s, 3 girls and 1 boy. And she is also the chairperson of the National Independent Schools Chaplain. So we are incredibly grateful for that with her leadership. Rev Di was also ordained to Anglican priesthood 10 years ago. She is also registered as a pastoral therapist with the Council for Pastoral and Spiritual Counsellors. She's also registered with Advanced Religious Professional and Pastoral Counselling. She has her Bachelor in Theology and her Honours degree, and she is currently studying her Masters of Divinity, and she has also got a BA major in Biblical Archaeology. So I know that this evening she is going to bless us with a wealth of knowledge, but it's also so encouraging just to know that she has walked her talk in all of these areas. So before I hand over to Rev Di, I just thought it would be quite nice to share with you why we are having this talk this evening, what the objective of this is. I think the why you all know because you are here. There's obviously a desperate need for us as parents to be equipped and to be informed and knowing what we need to do going ahead. We've come from an era of COVID where we exposed our children and we taught our children with technology, and a lot of online teaching took place, and we seem to have continued in that thread. So it's almost taking back that mantle of parenting, so to remind us of our mantle to parent. And I'm just going to preempt that I think that sometimes, because there's so many different people in a room, that sometimes when we hear a talk like this, we may want to react. And so it's good to take in this knowledge and to actually then apply it. And as parents, sort of stand back to back in our parenting and parent together for our children. So some of us may want to go out here and do this incredible disciplining in our children and change everything drastically. But I also just want to give you a word of encouragement when it comes to disciplining. Very often we think, I need to punish my child, take this away, do this and whatever. But I want to encourage you that punishment to almost turn it like counterculture and turn it into a discipline, that we have a look at how our response to wrongdoing should add value to society. So we should come out of this that recognizing that growth is through awareness. It's the ownership of consequences. It's never about degrading or humiliating punishment. And it's actually emulating how Jesus corrected. It's an incredible foundation for us to work from and a guideline. And it also encourages conversations to take place where there should be potential growth. We should bring issues from under the radar and use them for teachable moments. We should be able to use it that it channels good, that growth comes out of it for our family. Discipline is about refining and not condemning. And the purpose of discipline is to shape a life positively. It's not about regression or revenge. So my prayer for each one of us as parents this evening is that we take from this and we take up that mantle of parenting, and so to be encouraged, so as we hear this information, that we'll be encouraged by it and not want to rush and go into that knee-jerk response of a form of punishment. So before I hand the mic over to Reverend Di, I'd like to share this quote with you, and it's from J.R.R. Tolkien from Lord of the Rings. And as you hear this knowledge and information, I'd like you to sort of keep this as a little bit of a filter. And it goes like this. I do not love the bright sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love only that which they defend. So I want to encourage you, as you hear what Reverend Di shares, that what are we defending, what are we protecting in our family? So I'd like you to put your hands together and just to welcome Reverend Di. Thank you so much.
Okay, so what is that behind me? Do you know one of them is the neural pathways of your child's brain, and the other one is the universe. Can you see which is which? They're quite similar. Apparently, the modern parent is responsible for that. That's why I'm showing you that you are responsible for your child's neural pathways. Now, I don't know if any of you ever signed up for that as parents, did you? You know, we thought feeding them and paying for their school and looking after them was enough. Now, we discover to our horror that there's this going on behind their eyes. This neural pathways that are going on, and I'm just going to share a little bit on that tonight. So our brains develop, and what is starting to happen is with cell phone misuse, there's too much dopamine going into a child's brain. And I'm going to show you that's dopamine. Wait, there he is. Okay, so when you see that pop up, that's the dopamine, which is that feel-good hormone, gives you a bit of a high. It's really nice. But what I actually want to encourage us to focus on rather is the serotonin. That's the serotonin, where you also feel a sense of well-being and joy. So let's begin. Your children are known as digital natives. I don't know if you know that. That means they have just always known there were cell phones around. They'd never have picked up one of those things and dialed, like some of us used to do in the olden days. So they just think it's like a normal thing to have. But what's coming out from overuse of the cell phone is we're discovering these children have particular traits. They're coming out with loneliness, anxiety, and very, very sensitive. And we are even seeing that in our high school girls now. They also seem to have very high levels of anxiety, especially post-COVID, and I think it has a lot to do with cell phone overuse. Do you know these kids were on their smartphones for up to 6 hours a day? So can you imagine what that's done to their brains? So we're seeing an increase in depression as well. There's quite a low self-esteem because they're always comparing each other with each other, and no one has a life like theirs because everybody looks like they have the perfect life, right? So now this must be something wrong with them, so they're starting to believe that. Girls have a particular vulnerability when it comes to social media. They just love it. gossip, like pull this one down, there's lots of envy. They kind of get a thrill from social media, and unfortunately what comes with that is cyberbullying. And we actually want to stop that. And boys have a different vulnerability, which is porn addictions and gaming. When I look at my son and all his friends who come to the house, they never, like, she said, he said, he said, she said, they're not interested in that. They just want to watch YouTube shorts, gymming, jiu-jitsu, gaming. Like, they're not into the cyberbullying thing. They'll just go smack each other in the loos. You know? Like, finished. And it's done. But girls are different. So with that in mind, I'm hoping to encourage you to discourage the misuse of cell phones, okay, because they are being abused. I'm not speaking against smart technology. It's very useful, but it's also got a dark side, and we need to be aware of that as we parent into the future. So I'm just going to unpack 3 steps that I think we need to understand. We need to understand what is the problem with children and phones. What are the consequences that are going to show up in your child and in society? And then I'm going to offer some solutions, because we want hope, right? We want to end on a high note of hope. So, this is the problem. And it's actually a human being problem. It's not just a child problem. But human beings, we're quite discontented creatures. Have you noticed? There's like this restlessness that we're always trying to satisfy. So we love escaping from this discomfortable thing called life. Do you see that in yourself? And that's actually our life's journey, is to work through that restlessness and find what brings joy. But our children also have this restlessness, and they're not sure where to put it. So the problem is becoming addiction in little children. Okay, I'm not talking about addiction in parents. We know that that's there as well. But I'm very concerned, and I'm advocating for children tonight, because a lot of us don't know this. Okay, so addiction is a brain disease. Do you see all those little pathways going on there? Apparently there's reward pathways in our brains, and they are getting shifted into directions which are causing addiction. You all know about addiction with substances, right? Like you don't like open the cocaine and put lines on the coffee table. I hope. None of you, right? You don't do that and like roll up a 100 Rand note and snort that. I'm sure you don't do that as a family, okay? And you don't open the liquor cabinet and say, come and get the scotch, chap, you've had a difficult day. You're not doing that, are you? Hopefully. But the cell phone is like the same thing, and we just need to be aware of that before we give them one, because the misuse is causing addiction. So we know about substances, but do you know there's also behavioral addictions? So behavioral addiction is this thing, and the kids go like this, you know, is it still in my pocket? Is it still there? And we see the girls like walking around with the phone, and they're going like this. It's not even ringing. And they're like, or now it's like this, they think you can't see it in class. Messaging their boyfriends on WhatsApp. So they think you can't see it, but they're totally gripped in this other reality by the time they get to high school. That's why I'm talking to you, to try and prevent it by the time they get to high school. Okay, so these are my husband's slides, actually. This is a pleasure antennae, and we are wired for pleasure. So we are wired to get the right pathways going, and it's usually on these 3 areas. We need food, and we need sex, and we need affirmation. Now guess what is all over the internet? Can you see? Those 3 things. All over social media. All over the series. Everything they watch has those 3 things, but it's not a normal, like, I need this to survive. It's become an addiction for them. And because they're children, it's just too much dopamine. It's like, pow, kaboom. And those little pleasure antennae, they kind of grow out towards what is pleasurable, the dopamine, and let's do that again, let's do that again, let's do that again, let's do that again. But can you see it's too much for a little child's brain? So that's why we're getting a problem now. So I'm using porn as an example because it's huge, and unfortunately the statistics are that 50% of your children will be exposed to porn now, if they're under 11. So who's got children under 11? Okay, half of you. They're going to, because the porn industry is targeting them. Okay, it is just going to happen. So you're going to have to be one step ahead of them. So it changes the brain, and then unfortunately there's a lifelong addiction if they're exposed to it under the age of 16. This is why France has banned the cell phone for all teenagers under 16. They've just banned it. No, you can't have it, you can't have it, you can't have it at school, it's banned. I think France is a little bit ahead of the curve at the moment. I think you have to be 15. But that little pleasure antenna, do you see how it's grown and mutated and grown little outcrops towards sex and food and affirmation? And affirmation is what girls really, really want on social media. That's what they're looking for. Pick me. I want to be the one. I want to be the cool one. I'm the most important. Okay, that's that type of affirmation they're looking for. I'm the prettiest. I'm the best. I'm gorgeous. All that type of affirmation. So the bad news is that once the pathways are set, they're fixed for life. And you can actually, that's why I said, did you know you're responsible for their neural galaxies? Because you actually are, by giving them a phone or withholding the phone. And we'll go into some positive ways of using it just now. But I do need you to understand that, and the changes in the brain are the same as if you'd give them a line of cocaine after school, because shame, they've had a rough day, you know. That's what it's like. So let's look at some consequences now. My working theory for the current teenagers, because I do get phoned by a lot of other schools saying, our matrics are quite difficult. Our matrics are like, we can't get them. They just have come back from COVID like, And I think it's this term, adhedonia. What it means is no pleasure. You know, hedonism is pleasure. And adhedonia is there's no pleasure. So these teens are not getting the same level of dopamine anymore. So they're like, everything's just like, no, we don't want to do that. Nah. And I think that's a result of overusage of the cell phone. Because these kids watch series all night. I asked the matrics the other day, how long does it take to binge watch a series? It's about 5.5 hours, Rev. I said, do you have 5.5 hours? You know, matric is in a month's time. No, we don't. I'm like, what are you doing? We can't help it. We just have to. We just have to. So I can see addiction is already forming in them. So let's look at other consequences. There's increase in ADHD with cell phone usage. I'll let you read through that. Gaming facts. Gaming is also very, very dangerous. We think it's not. I was speaking to Chaplins last week. You see those funny things up there? They are called avatars. And the avatars come into Minecraft. And one of the avatars' name is distrust your parents. Like, where did these guys come from? Distrust your parents. So it's slipping in, and what we thought was like harmless, these things are slipping in. So gaming is also very, very dangerous. So our sons need to be aware of this as well. There's our little dopamine chap again. We're also noticing how the kids' brains is just being hijacked by this continual arousal from dopamine. And we're seeing this whole thing come into their brains. We didn't teach them about envy and cancel culture or ghosting or weird ideologies, and yet a little child in grade 7 will know exactly what that means. They just know, because it's come through into their brains like osmosis. It's just in the air they breathe. What else do we have? A bit of neurological damage, as I've mentioned, because of the neural pruning. So they're going to prune off things that don't give them that much pleasure anymore. Consequences of pornography are huge. And you must know that when they set up WhatsApp groups, you might be quite vigilant as to what you're doing in your home, but on WhatsApp groups, other children are not vigilant at all, and neither are their parents. And we're seeing porn come in all kinds of avenues and ways right now. Okay, and it's actually going to set them up for disappointment. It's not only boys now, by the way, it's the porn usage in girls is increasing. Because they're just fascinated. We just are, especially by evil. So even the word pornography is evil. Graphia means drawings. Okay, evil drawings. So it destroys satisfaction. It decreases the value of faithfulness. They lose the ability to be with a person. And it actually sets them up for failure in marriage later. So we really want to keep them off pornography at young ages. That one disturbs me. Do you know how much gender-based violence we have? I think it's connected to pornography. So the thought that women enjoy rape. And they did a study in Britain recently where a whole lot of women reported that in their sexual encounters they were being slapped, strangled, and spat on. Where are people learning this stuff? It's from online. So this is what increased cell phone usage does to your child's brain. It's not very good for academic institutions, you agree? Okay. And you as parents, I'm sure, want the opposite of all that. Higher marks, higher concentration, increased memory, and you are almost fighting this battle that you don't even know exists. Okay, the other thing with anhedonia is because they're on the phone at night a lot, their rhythms for sleep are being interfered with and they can't sleep. I've seen so many girls this year who they just can't sleep when they go to bed. Their brains are still like brrr. So I asked them, well, what time do you go off your phone? What? I should go off my phone at night? Like they haven't made the connection that the phone's actually stimulating their minds. So they become addicted to distraction. They can't, in the 90s, when we were smaller, we had this thing called boredom. Do you remember that? It was quite a good thing to have, because then you started to think laterally and plan and come up with great ideas, and they don't have that anymore, because they just reach straight for the phone. Then we get these secret vices coming through. Like the girls are becoming cyberbullies. Like, did we ever teach you to do that? No. And these ugly messages come through out of nowhere. And it's just because they've seen it on series or they've seen it somewhere online and they're just copying it. TikTok, nightmare for children. As I said, they compare with each other, so they always feel not good enough. I've had a whole lot of girls tell me this year, I'm just not pretty enough as my friends are. And she's like beautiful, and she's sitting right in front of you. And I try and tell them every girl is beautiful. But they've got this unreal, perfectionistic standard that's been put on them from social media. As I say, their time for innovation and good ideas is being stolen. And finally, they're just losing that depth of thinking. That they don't know how to follow logic, because that time has been stolen from them by them just being entertained. The word amusement is Greek. It's like not thinking. And so they're just not thinking. They are amused all the time. And then they are lonely and disconnected, even though they have 1,500 friends. They just can't make friends with normal people face to face. So they're losing the skills for that. But before I leave you in the depths of despair, let's look at some solutions now. So here's our little serotonin guy. There are things we can do, parents, and that's why I'm speaking to you tonight. I think we need to be proactive. We need to be a little bit ahead of them and preempt what's going on in culture so that we can put some boundaries in and stop this. Okay. So, mental health is a dedication to reality at all costs. And I said that a lot of teenagers are living in unreality. So we've almost got to bring them back into reality. That's M. Scott Peck, who's quite a famous psychiatrist. And he said basically what you think and what you do affects the way you feel. That's how human beings work. Now we're getting teenagers who, what they feel affects what they think and do. It's going in the opposite direction. And it's all about feelings today in their world. You know, if I feel like this, then I must be this. Or if I feel depressed, I must be so depressed. I've had so many girls diagnose themselves in my office. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I'm so depressed. So feelings are misplaced as well in our current culture. So the healing for this, I think, is actually reality. We've got to bring them back into reality. So here we go. I would encourage you to leave them off the phone. Don't even introduce it for as long as you can. So my husband's a psychiatrist. I asked him yesterday. He was sitting there. I said, Lovey, I'm speaking to the parents. What age do you think I should recommend they get a cell phone? I'm like, what age? He doesn't even look at me. He's like 18. I said, Lovey, I can't actually say that because I know our junior school kids have phones. He's like, well, that's where the research is going. It is so damaging for children to have a phone. I said, what about the little ones? You know, I've sometimes seen them in restaurants. They give their little kid a tablet and you be quiet. He's like, that is a nightmare for their brains. It is going to stuff them up. So, and he didn't say the word stuff either. So I'm just saying, we've got to be aware of this, that it's really interfering with their neural pathways. That's why I showed you the picture at the beginning. So I don't know how you're going to handle that, but I'm going to give you some good ideas to replace the phone with. Okay, try and get them out in the garden as much as you can. Stones, mud, sticks, houses, Legos, things like that. They need to be working with real things, not fantasy worlds and the metaverse. Do you know how many of our girls live in the metaverse? Because then they can watch Justin Bieber because they didn't get a ticket and now he's cancelled his tour and they can watch him in the metaverse. I'm like, what? You can't. He's not in the metaverse. But their minds have now mutated into a different sphere of reality, and it's leading for them to be depressed because it's actually clashing with reality. Okay, so there's this really good book that I'm going to recommend at the end. Noah Edel, he says, fun is looking for the variability in something other people don't notice. It's breaking through the boredom and monotony to discover its hidden beauty. And we've got to encourage them to find joy in real things, like nature, climbing trees, getting back to reality, washing the dishes, okay, like real things. I think we spoil them a bit much. So I'm going back to the think and do. Okay, so I think we have to be intentional in this, in our parenting. We've got to think through the consequences and how we're going to counter that. So we've got to be intentional, and I've said delay or somehow get the phones off them if they're too young. Replace it. Okay, so you can't actually get it off them because it's like a drug now. Have you tried to take the phone off your kid? Are they always like, yeah, sure, have it. I don't want it. Have they ever said that to you? It's going to get more and more of a fight, okay, because it's like a drug for them. They need their dopamine. So if you can delay the dopamine, do that as long as you can. So here's some replacement exercises. We've got to think, how can we correct their worldview? Because these weird worldviews are coming through social media. Weird worldviews. Some of them are identifying as cats and meowing at the teacher. What? That's what's happening every single day, about 10 times to your daughter. You are beautiful. Can you say that to her? Because that's what she needs to hear. That's why she's sexting some bozo at 3 a.m. in the morning, because that's what she wants to actually hear, is that she's accepted and beautiful and lovely. So I think dads and moms can do a lot to just affirm them, You know, we don't have to criticize them a lot. They get enough of that online. So if we can build them up at home, you see, it's the opposite spirit. We're working in the opposite spirit of building them up at home. Okay, so I'm going to recommend 2 good books. This one's really excellent. And it's about how to handle the discomfort that drives us to want to distract ourselves all the time. Okay, he's an Israeli guy. It was just released last year. In fact, Nathan recommended this book to me, my son, because he's doing engineering now. And I wanted him to go on his phone to please check on Tuck's ClickUp how much varsity fees are still owed. And I couldn't get him because his phone was off. So I got his sister and I said, please ask Nathan to just check his phone and how much we still owe. And Claire said, he says, if he goes on his phone, he has to burn 100 rand. I'm like, what? And it's from this book. Okay, there's consequences if you keep going on your phone. So, and tell Mom it's her pocket money anyway. So I couldn't find out how much we owed, but I did the next day. It wasn't that urgent, is what I'm saying. So this will give us some tips, and it's called pacts. So Nathan was using a pact of why he wasn't going to go on his phone. And here's another. Okay, so that's going to increase our serotonin in you and in your child. And then here's another one. It's really, really good. Breaking bad habit behaviors and how to do little changes, just little changes to build good habits in our lives. Okay, and these are the skills we need for ourselves and for our children. And I would recommend really upskilling before they get to high school, because you haven't got much time. It's coming for you, high school. It's coming. It's right there. And that's also good for serotonin, how to get joy from simple things. Okay, so I'm going to conclude now. I've mentioned those 3 things as things you can do now as parents. To get them in touch with reality, put in the boundaries early, and don't be afraid to put in the boundaries. Okay, and don't be like the dragon parent, because then they're just going to rebel. Nobody likes the dragon. Just be like the mature adult parent and just say, we are doing this. Do you know you have brain pathways? Ooh, we're doing this to protect you. So I think come alongside them in that way, because it's very tough being a teenager. It's really, really tough. I would hate to be a teenager now, really. And then finally setting that good example for your families. Okay, thanks very much.